Hello, you amazing people. You're listening to the Marketing and Coffee Podcast, the show that brings you the latest in marketing, especially in the UAE market, with your host, Lijo Etup.
Welcome to another episode of Marketing and Coffee Podcast with Lijo. I have got Siddharth Sharma all the way from Bombay, and he, I believe, is a growth marketing expert. And I feel a lot of my listeners have been asking, and I talk about growth marketing to a lot of my clients. And I thought no better person to have than Siddharth Sharma to take you through what growth marketing means, no matter what size of your organization is. That is the way forward. I hand over to Siddharth to introduce himself.
Hi, Lijo. Thank you for having me. And to all the listeners, good morning, good evening, or good night, wherever you are. I hope you're having a great day. And given the situation, I really do pray for that you are keeping safe and staying safe. So about me, right, Lijo, I've been a marketer for 12 plus years now. I've worked in various functions right across from pre-sales to sales enablement to product marketing. I've seen the advent of product marketing from sales enablement and to a very critical org structure, and I've basically worked across startups as well as enterprises to basically help them achieve growth through marketing, right? And my career has been a non-linear one. I have basically switched where I felt I'm getting a better opportunity to learn, and I've always looked out for one thing, which was basically learning, right? Because you always, when you go and join a new org, you start at zero, right? You're not looking at okay, what did I do in the past? Or, I was so successful as say a performance marketer or a PPC marketer. I would continue in that stream. I wouldn't probably do that. I would basically do one thing great or a couple of things great in an organization. And then if I found there was another opportunity outside or there's an opportunity inside the org, I would jump on that role and that's how, my career has been non-linear to a certain extent. Been pretty lucky with that. Thanks to that, I have now what people now call a T-shaped marketer. So I didn't know I was developing a T-shaped skill, but that's what I've become now. So it's pretty much fun. It's been a fun ride, very, very interesting. And I've learned a lot. I'm pretty happy about that.
Excellent. And I come from a similar background of making some part of doing sales and then marketing, because that helps us being very clear in the numbers and the way the entire multi-functions work. So very, very difficult and new times that has come in. During the COVID, everybody's locked it at home. Digital marketing is supposed to be the buzzword. How do you think the consumer behavior has changed, and how the media consumption habits? How do you think the marketing angle has changed during these times?
So with a lot of this talk going around about COVID and everything, right? One of the things is consumer behaviors have changed, right? And every marketing has to keep consumer in the forefront, right? And consumers' behaviors change. It's not like consumers remain the same all the time, and they change. But it's been a rapid change, and a lot of marketers are not being used to a rapid change, right? This is the kind of rapid change that we saw probably during the Great Recession of the 2008 era. Right, a lot of people started saving more, savings rate increased. There was not so much discretionary spend going on, and probably at that time there was a lot of consumer behavior change, and a lot of new age marketers who have come up, say from the last decade, 2010ish, they haven't seen this kind of an era, right? And basically we have not been, and I'm one of them, right? And we were unprepared for this, if you had to say, right? And a lot of consumer behavior is changing, and consumers are now no longer looking to discretionary spend. They're looking to basically not go out anywhere. So, even on digital, right? A lot of people keep saying across the world, okay, everything is moving digital, right? It's great. That's fine. But the fact is digital is just another medium, right? What you used to get if you could get a billboard outside a highway, you would now get a ad space in probably a very major website. Right? It's fine. It's great. I mean, I'm all for that. But the thing is, the customer is now no longer looking at that ad. Their eyeballs have basically started being basically blind to those ads because they know it's an ad, right? So marketers now have to look at, how they build their own audience, how they earn those audience, and how they engage their audience, right? You cannot basically now depend upon other platforms to help you along your journey, right? For a very long time, we've been used to other platforms like Google, Facebook, and all giving us a new source of leads every single day, right? Because people are searching and people are ready. But now, those platforms drying up a bit, and there is still traction over there. The most important part for marketers is to basically now own those leads that are coming in, build their own audience, engage them, and basically provide them value, right? The magic happens in marketing when you provide more value than you ask for, right? So if you have just asked for an email address and you give those people their answers to their really big pain points, right? Like for example, I would just deviate and I would talk about Ahrefs, right? Ahrefs basically, every time they publish an ebook, right, or they publish a research, it is so valuable to the entire SEO community and to the content marketers and to growth marketers like me. And I am more than happy to, be a part of, even if they start charging me for the content tomorrow, I would rather pay for it, right? Because it is very valuable, right? I wouldn't mind paying for the content itself, forget their tool. I wouldn't mind paying for the content. So I think marketers now need to realize that owning their audience and providing them value is far more important than just acquisition. A lot of focus has been because of, a lot of VC funded money has been there. We have had a lot of limitless cash flow for marketers. A lot of marketers have got into the habit of, acquisition focused, right? It's now time to take a step back and look at, okay, let's not only think about acquisition, but let's also think about retention and engagement, right? And one is the outcome of another. If you do good engagement, you are basically going to retain your customer.
Right. And it's like a leaking bucket. That's what I tell my clients, that you're filling the bucket, but if it's leaking and if you don't fix the leak, you're spending so much of energy of filling up the bucket that you're not retaining the customer, then you'll never fill your bucket of the kind of customers that you want. So
yes, exactly.
And it's very strange, the number of clients and especially I think it's badly spoiled in the market by because I get my valuation based on the number of acquisitions I've made. So I am so focused on acquisition, and to build a lifetime value out of them is never a thing. And they say that I'm going to build a lifetime value, but they have not put systems and processes to build that lifetime value.
So I mean, you would be surprised to know, a lot of people, when they, if you go out there in the world and you talk about lifetime value and talk about CAC, they would be like, yeah, we do that. We are looking at it. But inside the organization, right, there are hardly any which ways to, get a LTV mechanism out. Okay. So if you want to predict tomorrow, okay, if I'm going to generate 35 leads in this quarter, say, I'm just giving a hypothetical example, right? If I'm going to generate 35 warm leads for the sales guys to put it, right? What is the probability of these guys reaching the median LTV of a company, right? If this kind of a question is thrown to an organization, right, they're just off balance. They're like, if I give a cricket analogy, they are facing a bouncer from Curtly Ambrose. They have no clue about it. They have no idea what am I talking about. And then people are like, so, it's because, like you said, right, we have been lived in that VC era where your valuation was done on acquisitions and it was done on the user base rather than how much you're actually retaining. And, a lot of people have done this research in the past. It's been for marketers like you and me, it's very common sense, right? Like, okay, if you retain them, it's easier for a second purchase. I can just send them. But for a lot of people, they are basically more focused on, okay, what was my number of new acquisition? Because, that's the user expansion, right? And the more you focus on user expansion and the less importance you give retention, like you said, that bucket is always going to go dry, right? And while in B2C, you have that volume, in B2B, you just don't have that volume and you just cannot play with that.
Yeah. And one gone is worth millions of...
Oh, yeah. I mean, one big client down the drain can be a very heartache, right? Just because you couldn't retain them.
That brings me to the next question is, now there's so much of confusion in the market. Like there's digital marketing, there is growth marketing, there's performance marketing, and as marketers, we are also responsible for kind of confusing the people to have a different story. Is there a different storyline for each of them?
So I would say that it's a stages of evolution, right? Like, okay, first when Google started opening up its search ads and a lot of things, and people started learning how to master them. Similarly with other channels like Facebook and everything, it was kind of we started branding it as performance marketing, where, okay, you invest say $1 and you get say $1.5 in return. Very transactional, very simple. I'm investing $10 in your campaign. You give me back $15, right? There's no more and no less to it, right? Then basically it evolved into a digital marketing where basically, okay, are we running the similar campaigns across the channels, right? Digital campaign is more of, okay, are we doing it in a multi-channel approach? Are we taking an omni-channel approach, etc., right? So we start thinking about that. And growth marketing is probably the next phase of it, and which I would basically think of it as a broader marketing. And growth marketing, more than being a strategy, I think it's more of a mindset, right? Growth marketing is not only focused on acquisition, and it is focused on the entire gamut, right? After even the person converts, what are you doing to retain that client, right? Are you basically engaging with them? Are you providing value? Have you written any blog that might be interesting to them? Are you doing any webinars? Are you calling them across? Are you highlighting them, etc., right? You have multiple ways to engage with them. Are you doing that, right? And growth marketing basically is not, so in my head, growth marketing doesn't stop at acquisition. It goes to the entire funnel where the customer is retained as well. Now, if you ask me, which is the easiest to measure, obviously performance, right? Because the system is very simple. Digital comes in a bit of a little hard and medium to measure because there are multiple channels and you have to basically do a lot of analysis and a lot of stitching of data. Growth marketing is probably the hardest to measure because there are a lot of functions under growth marketing. Digital marketing is one part of growth marketing. So think of growth marketing as a super subset where digital is a smaller subset of it. And then performance marketing is a subset of digital marketing. So I would say growth marketing is like the version 3.0 of marketing. And I think this is here to stay, because this is where marketers would now truly focus on. And the best part about growth marketing is growth marketing focuses on revenue to the organization, which is what is actually required, right? Because you don't want a marketing team that is just looking at it as a cost center. At a lot of companies, when you talk to their CEOs, when you talk to their CFOs, when you ask them, okay, what do you think of growth marketing as? They're basically like, okay, it's a cost center for us. You would rather call it an investment center or a revenue center. And that's why growth marketing basically plays a role. It basically helps the organizations to steer their marketing towards a revenue number in their head. And
yeah. So I think it's more of a 360 aspect of not just the co-marketing things, to make sure that every function adds up to that, or every person adds up to that number that's the marketing supposed to deliver.
Correct.
Because, and maybe like, for example, performance marketing, everybody keeps measuring ROAS, what is the return on advertising spend. That may not be the unilateral measure of seeing that how is my marketing doing, because there's somebody there's ROI, because ROI takes much more than the advertising spend into it. But end of the day, as long as the operation is growing, and I think it's the only approach, no matter which size your organization is, to the marketing problems that you would have. And that brings an interesting aspect, like, is growth marketing only for larger organizations? Or what about startups? Is there something that startups should look at? Is there something that larger enterprises should look at? Is it for everybody?
So that's the kind of questions that we marketers are thrown every day, right? Okay, does this work for a large organization? Does this work for a startup? I'm a medium organization. So I'll just take a step back and I would just talk about growth marketing, right? Growth marketing is, like I said, is more of a mindset. And right. Like you said, it's a 360-degree approach, right? So now think of it as, how would you, if I gave you a clean slate today, right? How would you design a marketing team that can add revenue to your company, right? What would you do? How would you do that, right? And that is growth marketing in itself, right? Whether right now you require, say, a product marketer, or you require a digital marketer to solve your most pressing concerns, fair enough. But as long as you have the goal in your head, or the strategy in your head that I want marketing to be a revenue-driven organization, it will obviously come out. And when I say revenue-driven organization, I don't mean there is no scope for brand, right? Because brand drives probably the longest term. It's the biggest driver of the long-term revenue, right? I mean, if you have a good brand, nothing can beat that. In a market when everything is down, nothing will beat it, right? And that is why brand also is basically a part of growth marketing, right? So you have to see, okay, as an organization, what do I need right now? Do I need to focus more on right now getting more leads into the system, or do I need to focus more on making sure customer marketing is there, generating more sales qualified warm leads and passing them on to sales, right? All these questions are multiple questions are there. Do I need more sales enablement? Do I need more branding in the market? And all these are basically answered through your go-to-market strategies, right? Whether you need if you're approaching new markets, old market expansion with that. So basically, it's a mindset, right? With your mindset, you're basically looking at how do you help align marketing to revenue goals, right? And irrespective of the size of organization that you are, right? You might be the smallest the fish in the market, you might be the biggest fish in the market, right? You do need a marketing team that can help you deliver on your sales organization, right? On your business organization, right? You are not going to be, because if you don't have that, you will be, think of this, right? If you're a large enterprise and you don't have a growth marketing function, a startup with a growth marketing function will overtake you in markets that you could not even predict, right? And if you're a startup with no growth marketing function, then you are never going to make it to the big leagues. Okay. So growth marketing is, I think, a lot of founders and a lot of enterprises need to figure out a way how do they inculcate growth marketing into the process, and it is going to be there. I'll just give you a small example of how growth marketing functions, right? And why I say it is a mindset rather than even, some teams might not be right now structured as per a growth marketing team, but they can even adopt a growth marketing approach. Like, for example, running competitor based ads. Right now, a competitor based ad would basically be, okay, I'm going to go to, whenever somebody searches my competitor on a search engine like Google, Bing, I would show my ads to them, right? And that would be a typical marketing direct approach. But when you think of it as a product marketing, add product marketing to this, add inside sales to this, add social media to this, you come up with a kind of a holistic marketing engine, right? Because you don't want to just attack a problem with one expertise. You want to attack the problem with getting all the perspectives, right? So think of it as, how would I say, now I'm running a social media campaign, which is focused against my competitor. I'm running a search campaign across for my competitor. And for every competitor who's in the middle of my funnel, I'm running a retargeting display campaign, right? And my inside sales team is plugged in. If any lead comes from this particular campaign, they know what was the origin of this campaign, and they can basically fine tune their cadence around this.
Yeah, it will be very interesting because the larger organizations can have a proper team maybe. And I think, as we said, it's the mindset that takes precedence over the team. Because a lot of startups cannot afford a team that runs through them. So the founder himself would to have that growth marketing mindset rather than to have a team behind it.
Correct.
And larger organization would not have to have the founder to do it, or the CEO to do it, but a team that can run it. But if the growth mindset is not there at the CEO level, then it's all about, and the CEO is driving the wrong metrics, then it's in the wrong this thing. Because the startup needs to know that what do I need, what will you advise a startup guy or a smaller organization, like as you said, the competition-based strategy is one of them. What are the key things that he should keep in mind while looking at growth marketing?
So one of the things is, what is the short-term versus long-term goals of marketing function in an organization, right? And basis that, the founders and the CEOs can take a call on what do they want to do, right? Okay, short-term goals might be very, very, very tactical, right, in nature. Okay, I need to generate, say, 35 warm leads for I have a sales team member of 10, and they're not getting enough leads to basically work out. So I need I need somebody to come in and get me, say, 200 leads across, right? Etc. Short term. Okay, I'm not there on social media. I want to make my voice heard on social media. My competitors are doing great. Or basically, I don't have a blog right now. I am seeing all my competitors are getting a blog. I need somebody to take care of my blog and publish high quality content. These are very short term challenges, right? Long term challenges are, okay, I may be the leader in today's market. How do I build a moat around my business, right? In my existing market, and maybe I'm getting a new product in a existing market. How can I make it easier for my sales guys to upsell new products, right? How am I going to be perceived as a person or as a brand who is not going to disappoint their customers at even once? I'm going to, how do I basically look at providing customer delight every time, right? How do I how do I portray that brand image, right? Or if you're entering new markets, what kind of strategies would be needed to enter new market? Should I go in with a, should we go into the marketing approach? Should we go into the sales approach? And if you're going to the marketing approach, what does marketing need to deliver, right? So you have your strategic questions, you have your short-term questions, you have to label them down. And basically on a 2x2 matrix, you can actually figure out, okay, this is my immediate pain points. And for my immediate pain points, maybe I can hire a couple of resources. And then maybe for these strategic pain points, I need to hire probably a VP or a head of marketing, right? And that person would need to own this, and they would basically be aligned to my revenue organization, right? The moment a CEO starts thinking that marketing cannot be aligned to revenue, right, is when you basically go into two different tangents, right? You have the sales engine, the product engine, the customer success engine, who are very, very focused, single focusedly delivering on customers, right? Because the product is basically developing the features for the customers. The sales is going there to sell them. And you're basically looking at customer success to basically engage them and retain them. And then you have, say, if you develop a parallel track of marketing, where marketing is not judged on revenue, right? You're basically telling marketing, you have a free hand, right? Do what you want. We will not judge you on revenue, right? And that's not going to work in a particular organization, any organization, right? It's not going to work in any organization, because you can't have two different metrics for two different teams. There has to be a single North Star metric. Now the percentage contribution might change, but you have to have a single North Star metric. We have, say, for example, if your growth is, you need to hit, say $100 million in a annual recurring revenue this year, right? Your entire company should be aligned to that goal, even marketing, right? So so your marketing head should be able to come on, and she should be able to say that, okay, I'm going to take up this much of 100 million ARR, right? Correct. The tactics might change. The tactics will happen. Okay, I would need this kind of support. You would build out the plan. You would say what it needs to be done, but you would need to own up a part of that $100 million. As simple as that.
Would it, for example, will it compromise the entire brand building exercise? Because a large part of the marketing function is to make sure that the brand is built over a longer period of time.
Correct.
Now, if it's a very revenue focused model, the brand conversion from the brand building comes over a longer period of time. It has to be amortized Correct. Over a longer period of time. So Correct. How will a marketer and an organization convince that the amount of spending I'm spending behind the brand building, you need to make sure that that is something that you need to consider over a longer period of time. So
I would generally think of this as a top-down approach, right? If the higher management is not convinced that the brand needs to be built, right, then no matter what you do, you would not get that budget at all. Right? If a CEO says that, okay, brand is no brand, because you might get an approval for a single project, or 2 projects, or 3 projects, but every time when you have to go and fight for a brand number, right, then you would not have that energy, and at a certain point it will fizzle out. But if there is a top-down consensus that, okay, a brand needs to be built, and we are in the market for a long time, right? We are going to be in the market for a long time. That is where brands are going to pay off for your revenue-focused marketing in the long term, like you said, right? I mean, say not today, but say 5 years or 3 years down the line, when you have done enough brand building exercises and activities, your performance marketing engine is going to just shoot up through the roof, right? It's going to take a lot of load off, right? So think of it as a willpower versus a habit kind of a thing, right? A habit is something which you have, right? You are not going to change your habits, right? So if you have the habit of waking up at 6 and doing the exercises, you don't need willpower to do that. And every time, and I used to read this, right? Like, everybody used to say that, it's, if you exercise your willpower too much, it gets weakened, right? Because you have a certain quantity of willpower also, right? I mean, if you're for every single task, if you're using your willpower, you are going to drain it at certain point. A decision will come where you will not have the willpower to go ahead with it. So what do? You have to make a particular thing into a habit, right? And making a habit is equal to making a brand. If you can get into that analogy, right? Okay, I will create people shopping. So for example, very like Amazon, right? Now, Amazon is not an Indian brand, I would say. Like, I'll take the case of Indian market and Amazon. Amazon is a US brand. Flipkart actually learned from Amazon and built its system here way before Amazon did, right? But Amazon hit the correct pain point in India, right? Like, okay, if there is a return, the customers don't want to wait like an approval from Amazon or anything, right? They want a quick and speedy. So initially when Amazon launched, they basically had a very simple thing. If you return the product, you get full money. Of course, they face losses. Of course, there were problems in the supply chain, and there were fake orders and everything. But they started weeding them out. They figured out how to solve for those problems and not just basically completely eliminate it, right? And then they started capturing, and then it became a habit for Indian shoppers. Okay, if I order anything on Amazon, I don't need to worry. I don't need to be worried here. Okay, if I get a wrong, if I get a wrong shirt size or if I get a wrong product, I don't have to worry because Amazon will refund my money. And then it became a habit. You solve for the problem, it became a habit, and now you have built a brand, right? Now Amazon, Aapki Dukaan, right? I mean, this is a brilliant case study in itself, right? Look at an US brand and coming to India, and now a lot of people are saying it's like my grocery store, it's like my dukaan for everything, it's like my supermarket, right? It's a fantastic, and it has beaten the homegrown system of Flipkart, right? A lot of people, if you ask them, the average person would rather shop with Amazon than with Flipkart, right? Because they've built it, because Flipkart has a problem, Flipkart has pain points are not solved yet, but Amazon has invested in brand building, and to be very fair, Amazon did not take the pedal of revenue marketing. Right, they were very focused on generating revenues and their gross margins and everything, right? Their gross merchandise value, everything was on their focus, but they never stopped focusing on their brand, which is now paying off in the times of COVID-19, right? Because a lot of people will now be shopping online. They're all looking at e-commerce store, and what is the first thing that comes to my mind? Okay, Amazon will take care of me. Even if they give me a wrong product, I can get a return back. I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, that's
that kind of surety. Yeah.
So I feel that with similar things in the UAE market also, where the trust on Amazon in terms of taking care of the consumers, and also the Amazon, the Prime, right? That has got me. That's another interesting aspect. To build lifetime value out of me, they got this Prime where they give me specific service, and they're not charging a bomb for it. It's not like something. And who's going to shop online? I don't even feel a pinch. It's they're not making money out of Prime. It's just a kind of a commitment from you to get that hook in, so that you are always there with them. So the Prime is a very good example in the UAE market. And also other things that you get the music, you get the videos, you get so many different things, value add to them, that that is of huge importance.
Huge. And a lot of people have taken the leaf out of their playbook, right? So if you look at in the Indian market, right, you would see a lot of initially a lot of online e-commerce players, even food tech deliveries and everything, right? They never had a subscription model as such, where they would be like, okay, because everyone was like, okay, the Indian consumers is very price sensitive, they wouldn't pay for this, etc., etc. But Amazon changed that because it gave value, right? It's always about providing more value to the customer. It gave Prime, it bundled music, bundled their streaming app, and bundled 2-day shipping, 1-day shipping guarantee, everything into one particular package, right? And what happens is when you bundle so many things, the customer is like, okay, the customers tends to, customers most of the time make a decision for themselves, and they have to just rationalize it later, right? Your logical part comes after you have made the decision. When you want to rationalize, so you have, okay, I've got Prime. Oh, I have streaming, I have music, I have 1-day delivery, and the value you perceive you get from Amazon is so big that it's got hooked you onto the ecosystem.
Right. Yeah. Interesting. So, quite interesting conversation. So I guess end of the day, it's the mindset. And I think if every function, every organization, even if it's a 3-member organization of a startup or a 4-member organization of a startup or a 100-member organization of an enterprise, it's more important to have that mindset of growth. And once that is aligned, I guess it's just, and if you do not have it right now and all work in isolation of marketing, digital sales, it's just going to fall apart in the long run.
It's going to break. I think you would have more, you would have seen more about this, but every time I see a siloed organization, right, you can predict the demise of it very quickly, because at a certain point, when they reach a certain point, things will start breaking at seams. Things will start falling out. There would be a lot of friction. It would never work. And compared to organizations who might be much smaller in the market, much more, much at a lower price point, but they would suddenly zoom up in 5 years. right? Why? Because they had a completely growth-focused mindset.
Yeah. A very case in point is the organization I work for, Microsoft, where before Satya Nadella took over, it was a silo organization. Everybody worked in silos. He got together to work in teams. And that is one of the biggest organizational changes I've ever seen in an organization, and see where Microsoft is in the last 5 years. It's
and you can imagine the scale of Microsoft, right? I mean, imagine to drive that change, right? And the change being played out successfully. Right? I don't think so. Anybody in the world needs any bigger, larger case study than Microsoft itself.
Exactly.
Right? He has aligned the marketing teams, he's aligned the solution teams, he's aligned every single organization, right, to focus on the consumer. Right? You focus on the consumer, you're going to grow all the time, and it's a growth mode focused mindset. You're not going to take your pedal off the revenue. Whatever helps drive revenue, brand, performance, social, anything, right? I mean, you can structure the layers underneath as where you want it, but the entire organization needs to be aligned to one. And that is when you get it. That's when marketing focuses, and marketing, basically it's magical in marketing, right? When you have one single metric to focus on, it becomes magic because everyone's running towards that number.
Excellent. Sounds good. Thanks a lot, Sid, for this inputs. It brings a lot of purpose. I hope my listeners get value out of this, and I'm sure they will get a value out of this. And I've been a biggest advocate of growth marketing to all my clients, and I think a lot of things comes into perspective with this conversation. Thanks a lot. Sid also has his own podcast that he does.
But I don't compete with you on the podcast. So my podcast is completely different. I tend to focus on the humans of marketing. So basically, a lot of times we forget that we work with, with the marketing is so complex, we forget we work with humans and not algorithms and AI.
Right.
And it's kind of weird when, a lot of people think, hiring a VP of marketing, or say hiring a senior growth marketing expert, or getting a consultant would solve all their marketing problems, right? Every time if you see a successful marketing organization, it's a team. It is not a single person on that team. Maybe someone's pulling the weight a bit more, but that person would not be able to pull the weight if it was not for the team, right? You need a team, you need an aligned team, and those people, and that's why basically my podcast is more focused on that. How do leaders spot leaders? How do you motivate your team? So I don't compete on marketing podcast. I'm focused more on the human side.
Excellent. Yeah, that's the whole point. So like it's about the ecosystem, right? Marketing, we need to tell the right stories, be it the human angle, the marketing angle.
Correct.
It all comes together at some point of time, together for a success story. And if you want to follow, you can see that is on LinkedIn. You can reach out to him on LinkedIn. For me, I've got my own Instagram page and my Facebook page and my organization page, Prodigy Connect. So thanks a lot, Sid. Hopefully,
thank you for having me. And thank you everyone for tuning in and listening to this. Hit us both up if you have any questions. More than happy to answer it. And please do stay safe in this time.
Thank you.